Okay, let's just dive right into this because we are completely bypassing our usual agenda today. Welcome to The Explainer. Right off the bat, I need you to step into the pitch black with me. Today, we are going to meticulously dissect, analyze, and totally gut one of the most enduring, terrifying, and just deeply unsettling urban legends of our modern era. You know the one. It's that story that's been whispered in hushed tones in claustrophobic cinder-block dorm rooms. It's been shared over the dying embers of a campfire and, honestly, forwarded in chain emails for absolute decades. And there's a reason for that. It is meticulously designed to get completely under your skin. Why? Because it preys on something so fundamental, so deeply primal, that literally none of us are entirely immune to it. I don't care how tough you are. Even if you think, you've totally outgrown your fear of childhood monsters under the bed, this specific narrative always finds a way to sneak in. So go ahead and get comfortable, but seriously, you might want to keep a light on for this one, because we're exploring the dark, incredibly bloody roots of a story that simply refuses to die.
Have you ever been afraid of the dark? No, I want you to really genuinely think about that for a second. Picture yourself lying in bed tonight. The room is completely pitch black. The house is suffocatingly quiet. It's that heavy, oppressive kind of silence, right? The kind where you can actually hear your own heartbeat thumping in your ears. And then, suddenly, you hear a sound. Just a tiny floorboard creaking out in the hallway. Or maybe it's a strange, unnatural breathing coming from the far corner of the room. Your mind instantly hits the gas pedal, racing, feeling the void of that darkness with literally every conceivable horror. We've all been there. We've all been trapped in that paralyzing, terrifying moment of just not knowing what's out there. This universal, totally human fear of what lurks in the pitch black of a quiet room is exactly what our legend today capitalizes on. It's the ultimate hook. It preys on our absolute most vulnerable moments, when we're asleep, when we're exhausted, or when we foolishly think we are entirely alone and completely safe in our own private sanctuaries.
So if somehow you haven't heard this story, it almost always follows a very specific, incredibly deliberate sequence of events that is custom-built to maximize your dread. It usually starts with two college roommates. For the sake of the story, let's just call them Julie and Meg. Now, Julie is the outgoing one, right? She decides she's going to head out to a late-night fraternity party across campus. Meg, on the other hand, she's the studious one. She decides to stay behind in their isolated dorm room to cram for a massive midterm the next day. Okay, step 2. Julie returns very, very late. We're talking 2 or 3 a.m. The dorm hallways are just dead silent. Her room is completely dark. And here is step 3. This is the crucial turning point, the exact moment the tension just snaps. Julie is a good friend. She really is. She's considerate. She hears Meg breathing heavily over in the dark, and she actively decides to leave the lights off so she doesn't ruin her roommate's sleep. She quietly slips off her shoes, navigates the dark room entirely by memory, and just crawls right into her bed, completely unaware of the horrifying reality sharing this space with her. And then we hit step 4. She wakes up the next morning to an absolute, unimaginable nightmare.
The sun finally comes up, piercing through those cheap plastic dorm blinds. Julie rolls over, groggy, rubbing her eyes, getting ready to wake Meg up and ask her how all that studying went. But as her eyes finally adjust to the morning light, she doesn't see her friend sleeping. She sees a scene of sheer, unspeakable butchery. Meg hasn't been sleeping at all. Meg has been brutally slaughtered. Her throat is slashed. Her desk is utterly covered in blood. And the most horrifying detail, her shredded fingertips. They show that she had been desperately, agonizingly clawing at the walls for help while Julie slept peacefully just a few feet away. Julie literally falls to the floor in absolute shock, gagging, hyperventilating. And as she looks up, trembling, she sees a message scrawled on the wall, written in her roommate's own blood. "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?" The killer was in the room with her the entire time, standing there in the dark, watching her undress, watching her fall asleep. If she had just flipped that one little switch, she would have been completely dead too.
Section 1. The Ghosts of Pemberton Hall. It's a genuinely terrifying story, right? It gives you chills. But here is exactly where we're going to shift gears from a spooky campfire tale to cold, hard reality. Because the absolute most fascinating thing about urban legends is that they don't just, float around in the ether of our collective imagination. No, they attach themselves to real physical locations. They ground themselves in our actual, everyday world to jolt us and make that terror feel totally tangible. Take Eastern Illinois University's Pemberton Hall, for example. Look at it. It's a beautiful, ivy-covered, century-old building. It looks like a picturesque postcard of idyllic college life. But for over half a century, the young women who live within these heavy stone walls have been greeted by a remarkably similar, deeply ingrained campus legend. It's become this terrifying orientation ritual, passed down from veteran residents to incoming wide-eyed freshmen, essentially ensuring that the suffocating legacy of fear never, ever fades from the hallways. They call it the legend of the ghost of Mary Hawkins.
Now, Mary Hawkins was not a myth. She was a real, documented, historical figure. She was this stern, highly disciplined English headmistress, working at the school back in the early 1900s. But the legend says that over a desolate, freezing winter break, a young co-ed named Angela was staying in the nearly empty, echoing hall. Angela went up to the isolated fourth floor just to play the piano, but a deranged janitor snuck up behind her in the heavy shadows and violently attacked her. Beaten, broken, and bleeding profusely, Angela somehow managed to drag her own body down the pitch-black stairs, inch by inch, until she reached the heavy oak door of Headmistress Mary Hawkins. She desperately clawed at the wood, gargling on her own blood, literally sobbing for help in the dark. But Mary was fast asleep, and her door was locked tight. The next morning, Mary opened her door to find Angela's mutilated, dead body. The poor girl's fingernails were literally embedded and splintered right into the wood of the doorframe. The story goes that Mary was driven entirely insane by the crushing guilt of sleeping through a gruesome murder just inches away from her bed. She died in an asylum, and her ghost? Well, supposedly, she still roams the halls of Pemberton to this day.
Folklorists, the people who actually study these stories for a living, have categorized this specific horrifying type of tale. It falls under a very well-known folklore motif, ominously called the roommate's death. Whether it's the considerate college girl who doesn't turn on the light for her friend, or Headmistress Mary Hawkins completely failing to open her heavily locked door, the core narrative elements are totally identical. Think about it. You always have the isolated, highly vulnerable young woman. You have the savage, completely unseen killer waiting out there on the dark. And, absolutely most importantly, you have the visceral, stomach-churning terror of the victim clawing at a door or gasping in the dark, literally just inches away from someone who could so easily save them, but unknowingly doesn't. The ultimate horror of this motif isn't actually the bloody murder itself, as crazy as that sounds. It is the agonizing proximity to safety that is cruelly, unfairly denied. It's the horrific realization of being utterly and completely abandoned in your final desperate moments of life.
Section 2. Variations on a bloody theme. When we really study folklore, we start to see that these stories are almost like living, breathing viruses. They mutate, they relentlessly adapt depending on who the storyteller is, the geographic location they're in, and the specific era they are being told in. This constant, shifting mutation is the absolute ultimate proof that we are dealing with human psychology here rather than an actual true crime. For example, there is a fiercely famous variation of our dorm room story known as Humans Can Lick Too. Have you heard this one? In this version, a young girl is home alone, and she's absolutely terrified by news reports of an escaped, heavily armed lunatic in her area. So she locks all the doors, she bolts the windows, but she takes deep, profound comfort in her large, fiercely protective dog sleeping right underneath her bed. In the dead of the night, she wakes up to this wet, rhythmic dripping sound echoing from the bathroom down the hall. She's way too paralyzed by fear to actually get up and look, so she just reaches her hand down into the total darkness under the bed. She feels her dog reassuringly lick her hand. She sighs in relief and actually manages to go back to sleep. The next morning, she walks into the bathroom to find her dog slaughtered and hung up in the shower. That was the dripping sound she heard. And written on the mirror in thick, dripping blood, "Humans can lick too." The killer was lying underneath her bed the entire night. See, once again, the true psychological horror is that chilling near miss and the absolutely horrifying realization of false comfort.
Section 3. Tracing the Victorian Roots.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, these are strictly modern fears, right? Anxieties born out of the massive 1960s college boom or the creeping, quiet isolation of sprawling modern suburbs. But let's actually do a historical autopsy on this legend, because these supposedly modern fears are actually much, much older and way deeper than we think. We can trace this back way back. In August of 1871, an Englishman named Dearman Burchell wrote a diary entry detailing a deeply unsettling local rumor in his town. A clergyman's wife heard a strange rustling underneath their bed in the absolute dead of night. She was freaking out. But the clergyman soothingly turned to her and said, "Oh, it's only the Newfoundland dog. I just put my hand out and he licked it." They went back to sleep.
The next morning, they woke up to find all of their jewelry and valuables completely gone. The burglar had been hiding under the bed the whole time and had literally licked the man's hand in the dark to escape detection. Okay, so there was no bloody murder in this Victorian version, right? But that chilling psychological trick, the horrific intimacy of a predator mimicking absolute safety, that was officially born right there. Fast forward to the 1960s, as universities rapidly expanded and young women left home in record numbers, that exact same trick violently morphed into the roommate's death. And today, from the 1990s onward, it thrives in the darkest corners of the internet as terrifying creepypastas. The delivery method relentlessly changes, but the core primal fear, it remains completely identical.
Section 4, the psychology of fear.
So, it begs the question, why do we do this? Why are we so deeply, almost morbidly obsessed with telling these specific, terrifying tales to one another in the dark? Why do we want to scare ourselves? To answer that, we turn to fear sociologist Dr. Margie Kerr. She literally studies exactly why our human brains actively crave this kind of darkness. Dr. Kerr explains that the formula for all of these enduring stories is actually beautifully simple. You combine a terrifying horror story with a deeply embedded social lesson. Think about it for a moment. Urban legends are essentially just modern-day fairy tales. Little Red Riding Hood wasn't just an entertaining little story about a talking wolf, right? It was a desperate, life-saving warning to young children not to stray from the safe, illuminated path into the dark, dangerous woods. We prioritize horrific threats in our storytelling because, from a strict evolutionary biology standpoint, our brains are literally hardwired to pay extreme, laser-focused attention to things that can kill us. It's survival. We remember information infinitely better when it inspires strong, visceral feelings of terror in us.
Let's actually break down the hidden societal warnings that are baked right into the DNA of the Aren't You Glad legend to see exactly how this works in practice. First off, the story powerfully highlights the perceived extreme danger of leaving the safety of the traditional family home for institutional, unprotected living, like a college dorm. It's saying, the world out there is dangerous. Second, and this is wild, look at how the narrative explicitly polices behavior. Julie went out partying late into the night, while Meg stayed in to dutifully study. The legend inherently punishes the girl who stepped out of traditional bounds, the partying girl, by traumatizing her for the rest of her natural life, while brutally physically killing the one left unprotected in the dark. It actively reinforces a deep, paranoid mistrust of strangers. And fundamentally, at its absolute core, it was built on a highly prevalent 1960s belief that women are inherently vulnerable the exact moment they are alone or without traditional protection. The story wasn't just meant to give you a quick, cheap jump scare at a sleepover. It functioned as a highly effective subconscious tool. It was designed to reinforce the social status quo of the era and deliver a very stern, bloody warning to young adults stepping out into the world for the very first time. Which brings us to our final, and honestly, perhaps the most unsettling thought of this whole explainer. If these classic, terrifying stories were born out of the shifting anxieties of the 1960s, leaving home, trusting strangers in dorms, living completely independently, what about today? Look at our modern worlds right now. We eagerly invite complete strangers to come sleep in our spare bedrooms through apps on our phones. We willingly get into unmarked cars with people we don't even know, just to have them drive us home in the pitch dark. We fill our houses with smart speakers that are actively listening to our every single word, and doorbell cameras that watch our every single move. As our technology and our society rapidly change at this absolute breakneck pace, what deep, unspoken modern anxieties are brewing right now in our collective subconscious? What are the new, terrifying vulnerabilities that are going to spawn the campfire ghost stories of the future? Who's waiting in the dark for us now? I'm going to leave you with that to think about tonight, right before you turn off the light. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.